Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm just conscious that it's gone 10:32, and I would like to start now. I'm conscious that colleagues are still joining us, but we'll make a start um, this morning. Very good to see you all this morning. A very warm welcome to this Welsh NHS Confederation webinar in partnership with ABPI Cymru, titled Supporting Collaboration Between the Welsh NHS and the Pharmaceutical Industry. I'm delighted this morning that we are joined by a number of guests who will be talking to us this morning about the range of opportunities, the work that is currently ongoing, and the things that we could be doing better in partnership in the future. In particular, I'd like to welcome Nabil Rastani, who is the Strategic Partnership Policy Manager for ABPI, Adam Chapman, Head of Population Health and Pathways for AstraZeneca, and Dr. Sian Morgan, Consultant Clinical Scientist, Honorary Research Fellow at Cardiff Uni, but Head of Laboratory at NHS Wales or Wales Medical Genomics Service. So very warm welcome to three of our colleagues. We were hoping that Dr. Vasim Farooq would join us this morning. I don't know whether Vasim has been able to join, but we do have three very good presentations this morning, and looking forward to hearing what they have to say as part of this Confed webinar. Just housekeeping rules, if I could ask you to keep your microphones switched off until later this morning, when there'll be an opportunity to pose any particular reflections or ask the panel any questions. But as the chair of the Welsh NHS Confederation, I'm delighted that you've been able to make this event today. Conscious that this is a very busy week, of course, people attempting to get as many things off their desks as possible before the festivities of Christmas hit us next week. So good to see you all, and I'm looking forward to what our colleagues have to say. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Nabil, who's going to give us an overview from ABPI. Many thanks.
Thanks very much, Jonathan, and thank you for the really warm introduction and welcome. Just by way of introduction, colleagues on the line might be aware of the work of the ABPI, but there might be some who might not know about the ABPI. But essentially, we exist to make the UK the kind of best place in the world to develop and research and actually use medicines and vaccines for the future. And kind of one of the responsibilities to help facilitate that is through the delivery of more partnerships between NHS organisations and industry across the UK. So I'm really delighted to be here today on behalf of the ABPI to help launch this new guidance that we've produced in direct collaboration with the NHS Confederation of Wales. And this new piece of guidance brings together really kind of a shared experience, learning and insights from both industry and NHS leaders to really design a kind of practical piece of guidance that can help both NHS and industry to undertake partnerships in a kind of clear and robust manner. Because we know that from kind of previous independently commissioned and undertaken research, that where partnerships have historically taken place in the past, they are associated with kind of better health outcomes for patients, those improvements in access to innovations and system-wide benefits. So it's kind of really important that we take the lessons of those successful partnerships and scale them across more systems so that more patients have access to those kind of brilliant benefits that they bring. And so there are a kind of range of different successful partnerships that we have undertaken between industry and NHS in Wales, and we'll be hearing about a couple of examples of that kind of later in this webinar. But just very quickly, what we wanted to do in particular with this new guidance was to build on the historic good practice that had been developed. And there was a kind of previous iteration of this guidance that was produced in 2021, so prior to the development of system level working. And what we tried to do with this is to draw on learnings from kind of historic guidance, as well as I said, kind of undertaking research and developments with relevant NHS and industry leaders to support the delivery of more partnerships. And we wanted to achieve kind of two things in particular as part of that. Firstly, we wanted to kind of create clearer, jointly endorsed frameworks and sources of assurances that support every stage of the partnership cycle to take place, right from the kind of identification of project opportunities and scoping phases through to the governance and delivery and reporting outcomes. And that, again, kind of really helps give those kind of assurances and confidence for those individuals who and organizations who are seeking to undertake collaborations. And as I say, that's really important as a source of kind of clarity to support them to be operationalized in a clear way. And secondly, and this is really important as well, what we've made sure to do as part of this process, develop it in line with the ABPI Code of Practice. And that essentially serves as the kind of underpinning guardrail by which all partnerships take place in a really ethical and robust manner to ensure that they're transparent and safely conducted. And that was something that we were really kind of clear and robust in our process of making sure that the PMCPA, who actually operationalize and deliver the ABPI Code of Practice, are able to kind of utilize it and able to review the process of its development as well. And above all, we really hope that this guidance helps stakeholders from across industry and the NHS to think really more positively about how partnerships can be undertaken to deliver kind of improvements for the system, but also ultimately for kind of improving patient outcomes. So with that, I'll hand over to our next speaker, Adam, who'll talk a little bit further around an individual example of a partnership in Wales.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nabil. I've just got one slide to call up for this as a bit of a placeholder really for this part of the presentation. So I'm Adam Chapman. I'm head of population health and pathways at AstraZeneca. I lead a fantastic team of people whose purpose is here to work in partnership with the NHS to implement guideline and evidence-based care recommendations. And I'm really proud actually to be invited to come and speak to you all today. Really proud of the invite because of the work that AstraZeneca have done in partnership with the NHS across the UK, but specifically with NHS Wales. So over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we've run somewhere in the region of 200 partnership programmes between AstraZeneca and the NHS. A significant proportion of these have been in Wales, which I'll touch on later. And we actually have a formal partnership with the government and with academia and with the life sciences sector in Wales to advance healthcare and healthcare research. So I suppose there's 4 things that I really want to cover as part of this session. I want to talk about as an organisation, and I'm probably speaking on behalf of the industry, the kind of things we look for when we want to partner and when there's an opportunity to partner with the NHS. The kind of outcomes and the kind of change that we're looking to try and achieve as part of those partnerships. Then, really importantly, why NHS Wales as an important partner to us, and then to give some high-level examples of some of the work that we're actively doing and that we've actively completed across Wales. So if we start with what we look for as an organisation when partnering with the NHS to transform care, as we call it, there are 4 prerequisites that we look for within any partnership. They probably all seem quite straightforward and quite self-explanatory, but they really are important to get good quality partnerships off the ground and for them to make a difference to the care that patients receive. So the 4 things that we look for as prerequisites are, first and foremost, that there is strategic alignment between us as an organisation and the organisation that we're trying to partner with. That kind of means that we see a specific condition and the unmet needs for a specific condition and what the future treatment course for a certain condition is in exactly the same way across the partner organisations. We also know that for things to get off the ground and to work very effectively, there needs to be sponsorship for change and sponsorship for working in partnership at all levels within the system, but specifically from senior leaders within the local or within the national NHS. Without that, the boundary, the barriers that we could come up against are quite significant. So therefore, that senior sponsorship and senior leadership endorsement is really important for a successful partnership. As is co-creation. As an organisation that's delivered, as I said before, in the region of 200 partnership projects over the course of the last few years, it can be quite easy to think that we may have all the answers, or it might be quite easy for the local NHS to think that they have all the answers to a certain problem or a certain challenge. But actually, one thing that's worked well in one area, or one thing that's worked well that the NHS have done, doesn't necessarily mean is instantly replicable in another scenario or in another situation. So co-creation of a solution to a clearly defined problem is one of the other mandatory prerequisites that we have. But probably the most important, and it aligns just back to what Nabil has said, is that there is a commitment to scale from both organisations. It's really easy for partnerships to be a pilot or to be a proof of concept. And many collaborative programs need to start in that way. But what's really critical, if they're going to make the difference that patients deserve from them, is that there's a commitment to scale right from the beginning and right from the off. So they're the things that we look for in partnership with the NHS. But we also need to know from experience that we need to be really clear on the outcomes that we're trying to achieve from partnership programs as well. So the kind of things that we have experience of working on that work really well in partnership with the NHS, again, fall into 3 or 4 different areas. So the kind of things that we like to do that we know can have a really significant benefit to patients is working on programs that either, number one, have a focus on proactive screening or earlier diagnosis, so patients can access care earlier in their overall journey. We have a huge amount of experience on working on projects that focus on guideline implementation, taking a national or a regional guideline, generally for prevalent long-term conditions, and working in partnership to ensure that those guidelines are implemented. I'm sure there's nothing more frustrating for people that have spent hundreds or potentially even thousands of man hours trawling through evidence to develop best practice guidance that never gets implemented. So that's one of the things that's right at the core of our partnership programs, as are advancing specialist pathways. Many specialist or rare conditions have pathways in place where there are potential inefficiencies or data gaps or leakage points. So one of the huge areas for us for partnership focus is about how we can advance some of those pathways to help make them more efficient. And then finally, we also have a focus on policy leadership as well. So hopefully you get a flavour of what we look for and the kind of work that we're involved in AstraZeneca. But one of the reasons why I think we've been invited here to speak today is because we've started to build a really good proven track record of partnership with NHS Wales. And we put a huge amount of focus in developing those partnerships with NHS Wales, predominantly because there's a clear need within the Welsh system and for patients in Wales to have outcomes for major conditions transformed. But there are also several things within the system that essentially made NHS Wales a really attractive partner for AstraZeneca back in 2023 when we signed the memorandum of understanding that we have across the 2 organisations. And they boil down to a couple of things. I think firstly, like I described earlier, it's really important that organisations are strategically aligned. And AstraZeneca and NHS Wales are strategically aligned in our vision for policy shaping, but also across 2 or 3 long-term conditions as well that are both really important to both organisations. I think Wales is also an attractive partner because it's such a close-knit system. You've got really close ties between government, between academia, between the health boards, and between primary and secondary care. And therefore it means that communication within the system, and therefore communication between the system and a partner organisation, can be really clear and can be really effective to get things off the ground, but then actually to implement partnership projects really effectively. I think it's also very beneficial from a practical point of view that there's a single electronic data system that runs across primary care and NHS Wales, with the fact that everywhere runs the EMIS system, which means that data to be able to identify at-risk groups of people, to actually focus on the right individual patients, and then to be able to to centralize data and to be able to use that data for measurement of impact is also much simpler than it is across other parts of the UK, which makes it a very attractive area to partner with. And then finally, I think one thing that really can't be underestimated is that within our organisation, we've had a group of people that have worked in AstraZeneca, working in Wales for quite a significant period of time, and therefore the trust that's developed between organisations based on some of that long-standing tenure has allowed us to build trust and to build some really strong relationships that have led to partnership right from the beginning. So we've taken all those things into consideration as we've become really proactive in the work that we've done across Wales, and that's actually led to 3 or 4 really strong pieces of work that have been delivered or are being delivered at the moment. There are 2 or 3 projects that we have delivered across asthma and across cardiorenal metabolic conditions at a health board level that are focused on guideline implementation. Really looking at trying to identify the most at-risk patients, prioritising the reviews of those most at-risk patients, getting specialists out of secondary care into primary care to ensure that those patients have a really robust review for those long-term conditions and their care is optimised. So really simple in some ways, but also effective programmes to implement guidance. We've also got some fantastic examples of some projects looking at specialist pathways. This has largely been in the severe asthma space, both in the south of Wales and in the north of Wales. One of those programmes was actually published in the British Journal of Healthcare Management yesterday, which focuses on a pathway programme in the Aneurin and Bevan Health Board, which has a focus on having a major reduction in the amount of time that patients wait for specialist treatment. And then the North Wales project very much focuses on increasing patient throughput and creating a significant increase in the number of patient touch points that are in play for severe asthma patients to receive the appropriate diagnosis and then the appropriate level of care. But this is really just the start. There are several more projects that are in scoping or are about to start between AstraZeneca and NHS Wales that we know will continue to make a difference to patient care. So it's taken us a while to get to this point, but we're really proud that we've got to this point. I think trust is at the centre of this relationship, and with every project and every touch point within each project, it definitely feels like that trust is increasing, and it's really exciting that I think we're actually only at the beginning of this journey. There's so much more that can be achieved between ourselves and the various different partner organisations that we're working with across Wales, but most importantly for patients that are out there with a significant unmet need. So thank you very much for the opportunity to come and present to you today. And I'll now hand over to Sian, who's going to bring some real life examples to life.
Thank you, Adam. So my first task is to share my slide deck, which I will do now. And everyone, because I can now not see anyone. Can somebody say that they can see this slide deck?
Yeah,
yes,
I can, Sian. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. So my name is Sian Morgan. I'm a consultant clinical scientist and I work at the All Wales Medical Genomics Service. And today I'm here to discuss with you how we had a programme of work that supported collaboration between the Welsh NHS and the pharmaceutical industry. And the name of that programme is QuickDNA, of which I've co-led this particular programme. Okay. It doesn't want to go down. Let's see. Okay, I'll have to just click from one slide to the next, so just bear with me on that. So we've already heard from Nabil today that the ABPI states that the UK should aspire to nothing less than a healthcare system that delivers the best patient outcomes in the world. and that together we can deliver projects that improve patient outcomes, we can create an innovation-ready NHS, and we can make the best use of data to enhance NHS research capability. And the quick DNA, hopefully, I'll be able to show you today, exemplifies an industry NHS collaboration driving genomic innovation that enables faster access to precision medicines and also creating a framework for sustainable commissioning. So the Quick DNA programme concentrates on the lung cancer diagnostic pathway in Wales. Lung cancer is the 4th most common cancer in Wales, and it is the leading cause of cancer death. And unfortunately, most patients are diagnosed at a late stage in Wales, presenting at stage 3 or 4, and these patients have an extremely poor outcome for this particular cancer. So at the start of the Quick DNA programme, we looked at the current lung cancer diagnostic pathway, which includes patients referred to the Rapid Access Lung Clinic or Review Clinic at the point of suspicion of lung cancer, where they have access to imaging and onward referral for tissue biopsy, and those results being discussed at MDT, where the genomic profile tests are requested specifically for an oncology appointment and onward referral for precision targeted testing. In May 2024 in Wales, only 49% of patients were diagnosed within the 62-day KPI that is set for this diagnostic pathway. So there was a real critical need to shorten this pathway for lung cancer patients. So the Quick DNA programme set out to introduce an innovative liquid biopsy test at the point of rapid access to the clinic, producing a genomic profile for MDT, not being requested at MDT, with the aim to try and get our patients onto the much needed targeted therapy as quickly as possible and to shorten this diagnostic pathway. So the Quick DNA primary objectives was to reduce time from diagnosis to treatment, but also knowing that patients sometimes died waiting on this diagnostic pathway, or patients became too unwell for precision medicines. We wanted to try and see whether we could improve targeted treatment rates within the diagnostic pathway as well. So first of all, we had to embrace new technologies. And in 2021, a close collaboration between the AWMGS and Illumina, of which we had really strong relationship already with this company, led us to be the first in the NHS in the UK to validate the TrueSight Oncology large gene panel of 500 genes. And this offered great opportunities for us in Wales to generate an in-house ctDNA panel to offer comprehensive genomic profile. And this totally complemented the tissue biopsy pathway, which we call Cuscodi in laboratory, which already used the 500 tissue gene panel that Illumina produced. So we had complete concordance with running a 500 gene panel, both for tissue and for liquid biopsy, as part of the Quick DNA, with the aim of providing both early diagnosis and therapy guidance for our patients with lung cancer in Wales. So as I've already alluded, Illumina became a critical industry partner as part of the Quick DNA. But to run this particular test within the lung cancer diagnostic pathway, we needed further funding. And we got that funding from pharmaceutical companies, including Bayer, Amgen, Lilly, and AstraZeneca, from patient advocate Craig Maxwell, from the third sector, Moondance, and supported also by 10 of us, and from Welsh Government. And the Quick DNA quickly became a benchmark for innovation in Wales, especially in genomics, through unprecedented cross-sector collaboration and funding. And we do see this as a scalable model for multi-cancer liquid biopsy adoption into the future. We also had a secondment from a pharmaceutical company of having support from a member from Amgen, and that was Lewis Eagle, to join the Quick DNA programme, which meant for us in the NHS additional project management capacity and enhanced stakeholder coordination, and working together, working on a scalable model for innovation adoption. And for Amgen, it gave them deep NHS system insight, as well as strengthening our relationship and real-world example of value-based partnership. And again, working together on a scalable model for future biomarker and diagnostic innovation. But patients are central for everything that we do. And for the patients, our aim was to have faster access to targeted therapies, fewer invasive procedures, and more equitable to genomic testing across NHS Wales. As I say, getting better outcomes for our patients is always central to everything that we do. So what made this a successful partnership with Amgen? Well, there was complete trust and transparency, and that was earned through consistent, open communication and transparency in decision-making and data sharing. We had a shared purpose, and that was to improve the patient outcomes within the lung cancer diagnostic pathway. We had cross-sector collaboration, and we had clear objective and metrics, and everyone knew what success looked like. So the Quick DNA programme was launched in April 2023, and by May 2024, Quick DNA was successfully scaled up across all 6 health boards in Wales, expanding from its 2023 launch at a pilot site, which was an Erin Bevan UHB, to a nationwide scalable rollout that enabled equitable access to liquid biopsy for all patients across Wales. By October 2025, we had recruited over 700 patients, and the Quick DNA programme has now finished, and we are not further recruiting any more patients to the Quick DNA programme, and we've finally recruited over 750 patients. The failure rate of the liquid biopsy test is 4%, and the average turnaround time from getting that blood sample into the laboratory and issuing a genomic profile is 13.2 days. For this cohort of patients, we have found actionable variants in 15% of that cohort, which includes all of these different biomarker targets below. And we have fully analysed and reported on the first 113 patients. So what I would like to do now is share with you some of that early data that we've got for the programme. So comparing the biomarker genes that we've picked up through the tissue pathway compared to the liquid biopsy pathway, we've actually picked up more actionable mutations through the liquid biopsy pathway compared to the tissue across these different biomarkers. And doing more of a deep dive into those 113 patients, you can see from the lung cancer type that we have identified patients with adenocarcinoma, with squamous cell carcinoma, and non-specific lung cancer, as well as small cell lung cancer. Other cancer types as well, because at the point we offered this blood test, obviously they hadn't had confirmation of a lung cancer diagnostic. But even in that other cancer types, we did pick up a biomarker, which again will be of benefit to that patient within that cancer diagnostic pathway. We didn't pick up any patients with no cancer. But I really want to concentrate on one cohort of patients, and those are the ones who've had radiological lung cancer with no access for whatever reason, and that will be many reasons why they didn't have access to the tissue testing pathway. They might have been too ill, it might not have been a choice for them, they might have even declined having an invasive procedure because it is quite a painful procedure. And for those particular patients, the genomic profile that they had would have only been through that particular liquid biopsy genomic profile. And I'm quite surprised that this cohort of patient adds up to 26% of the overall patients that we have analysed in this early part of the study. And one of those patients received treatment based on the ctDNA results alone. It is really important to note as well that comparing both the 500 tissue and the 500 liquid biopsy results that we have generated from the laboratory, that we have really high concordance with both tests being informative, when they are informative, showing 98% concordance. So some further results from the early data. From cancer suspicion to actually providing a genomic profile, the liquid biopsy pathway was faster by a total of 23 days compared to the tissue pathway of 47 days. From sample collection to the report, again, the liquid biopsy pathway was 12 days faster than the tissue pathway. But I think this is one of the most important results, I think, that we have generated from the early data, and that is from time to treatment of the results to the patients, because this is where the patients get its most impact from what we're trying to do within this program. So 11 participants received targeted treatment after ctDNA results within 45 days median time from the liquid biopsy testing, compared to the 2 participants which received only tissue testing and didn't receive a liquid biopsy testing, where they received treatment at 66 days and one at 116 days. So this program of work definitely supported a faster adoption of precision oncology across NHS Wales. By May this year in 2025, this test was published on the National Genomic Test Directory, specifically because of this work and of similar work that was ongoing within NHSE as well, showing the clinical utility of this test within this diagnostic pathway. This now means that this is a business as usual commissioned test within the NHS healthcare system, both in Wales and in England. And to ensure that we get equitable access to this test moving into the commissioning model in Wales, we have gone out recently with the Welsh Thoracic Oncology Group to add this test to the National Optimal Pathway for Lung Cancer. So we are now on the 4th edition of this National Optimal Pathway. This has gone out to consultation, and consultation has been closed, and this has now been approved through the Welsh Thoracic Oncology Group. The liquid biopsy is now added to the biomarker testing pathway, ensuring that this becomes a standard of care test within the NHS healthcare system across Wales. We've also added liquid biopsy to the last part of the pathway, ensuring the patients who have not had access to the liquid biopsy at the point at the start of this pathway absolutely do get access at the end if the tissue testing has failed. So as you can see, the Quick DNA programme influenced both policy and practice. The Quick DNA is cited in the Cancer Improvement Plan for Wales as a national model for early diagnosis and precision treatment. In the Genomics Delivery Plan, this was a key deliverable of introducing liquid biopsy into the NHS healthcare system in Wales. And a Roche publication, a Liquid Experience Report in 2024, explicitly references the Welsh Quick DNA study as a model for implementation. It also shares learnings from Quick DNA alongside NHS England pilots to guide national rollout. As far as influence on practice, as I've already alluded to, this has been published on the National Genomic Test Directory. This work is catalysing the development of the next programme of work, which we've called Quick DNA Max, and an independent health economic assessment with colleagues in NHS England has estimated an 11 million annual saving for NHS England due to reduced delays and improved treatment matching because of the introduction of liquid biopsy. A health economic assessment is ongoing at the moment for us within the Quick DNA programme. So this work, again, supports faster adoption of precision oncology across the health systems. And I think going back to what Adam has just said of why you should come and work with us in Wales, I think the Quick DNA programme exemplifies the within genomics, the fact that we have centralised national service ensures consistency and efficiency, that we're really good at fast adoption of new genomic tests and technologies, that we can show and work together with industry and with pharmaceutical and actually build on these strong relationships, enabling rapid adoption of new technologies. We have uniform access across Wales with no postcode variation, and we have fully integrated NHS Wales for seamless genomic data sharing. And we have stable funding model, which enables rapid implementation of innovation into the NHS system in Wales. And on the right, again exemplifies all the different stakeholders, organisations and partners that we have in Wales that enables us to bring in innovation, whatever innovation that might be, and actually show that this absolutely can make a difference to our patients and our patient outcomes here in Wales. The Quick DNA Award has been recognised for its award-winning leadership, and it's also earned Welsh ministerial support throughout the whole programme. And it's also been driven by media attention, driven by a heroic patient advocate, Craig Maxwell, who himself 2 years ago was identified with stage 4 lung cancer and has since his diagnosis raised over 1.5 million to the Maxwell Family Genomics Fund, and absolutely is an advocate for us of why we should have a call for innovation and the importance of driving innovation into our NHS healthcare systems. So therefore, at this moment in time, we are now building on Quick DNA successes, and building on the Quick DNA Max programme, which aims to expand liquid biopsy across multiple cancer and accelerate the uptake of innovative therapies into the NHS Wales across other solid tumour types. One of those objectives already been met, and that is within the breast cancer, due to the NICE approval of Electrasant back in February 2025, with the identification of ESR1 mutation in the ctDNA. And this is the first test that absolutely states that this gene mutation has to be picked up from ctDNA, not from tissue. That recommendation was published on the NHSE Cancer Test Directory in May. And because of the infrastructure we've built through Quick DNA and the fact that we have got this large gene panel, we were enabled to go live in the All Wales Medical Genomics service with a service for ESR1 in ctDNA in May as well this year. And an early audit from May to August showed that we'd already tested 86 breast cancer patients. Now, the modelling that we'd done prior to this showed that we were probably going to be testing about 100 patients annually per year. We showed that there were many patients already on the backlog and keen to have access to this particular NICE approval pharmaceutical drug. We've actually reported 50% of those patients to have the ESR1 mutation, really good sensitivity, and demonstrating rapid turnaround with an average turnaround time of 12.5 days once we receive that blood sample in the laboratory. But there are great opportunities here working forward or thinking forward, both from the Quick DNA programme and from Max. For clinical trials, the fast tracking of patient recruitment using this large 500 gene panel liquid biopsy for cancers with actionable mutations. The real world validations, it offers a scalable platform for industry to test new diagnostic therapies and AI models alongside NHS Wales. We have got rich data sets that we can work on with development of AI, and it's really critical that we always align with NHS research and government strategies as we move forward with this programme of work. But my last slide is to say that we can only do this together. If we really want to transform healthcare, we have to do it together. And hopefully I've shown you today that through genomics, through this innovation, we can drive faster adoption of precision oncology. We can support NICE integration and other commissioning recommendations out there. But it's really important that we build and sustain these NHS industry partnership, because it's only together we can absolutely make that difference. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions they may have. Just like to thank so many teams involved in this work, and apologies if I've missed anyone, but massive thanks to everyone who's been involved in both in Quick DNA and now moving into Max. Thank you.
Thank you, Sian. Thank you very much indeed. Before I reach out for questions or comments, can I just in the first instance thank Nabil, Adam, and of course Sian for their presentations this morning. Sian, before I just double check back with our colleagues on the call this morning, there was one question that was put into the chat while you were speaking from Mark Dodd, who said that if these pilot results were replicated across all of Wales, what would this mean to outcomes? Diagnosing increases at earlier stages and time to initiate treatment of 60-day target variants. So I think you touched on some of that certainly as you went through the presentation, but just to reflect on that question from Mark, if possible.
Yeah, so we are collecting outcomes as part of the Quick DNA program, but obviously patients, I'm really pleased to say patients are living longer on these personalized treatments. So it's not something we can collect. So we will be continuing to collect outcomes on these patients for another year or so we can absolutely answer that question. So we are comparing data, controlled data within the NHS healthcare system in Wales, where they didn't have access to liquid biopsy in the last 2 years, and we'll be comparing the impact of ctDNA on outcomes. But as I say, it's not something we can share at the moment, but we are collecting that data as part of that Quick DNA program.
Thank you, Sian. Okay, are there any questions from colleagues who've joined us this morning for the webinar? Whilst you're all thinking, I've got a quick one for Adam, if that's okay. Adam, in your presentation, you said that you referenced the things that you look for in partnership arrangements, and reflecting on what we do in Wales and what we've seen in Wales and how we compare perhaps to other parts of the United Kingdom. How would you currently characterise partnership working in Wales?
I think if I was to characterise partnership working with NHS in Wales, probably versus the rest of the UK, I think one distinguishing factor that's different is there is more of an appetite or more simplicity, I'm not quite sure which, for us to partner with NHS Wales at a more of a system level, at a slightly higher level within the system, so focusing very much at health board level. If I think about the breakdown of our partnerships, specifically in England, many of those partnerships are at primary care network level or at trust level. There are a growing but still a relatively small number at integrated care board or health innovation network level. But actually the majority of the work that we've done across Wales has very much been at a health board level. I think part of the reason for that, it's not definitive, but I think part of the reason for that is because the Welsh Health Board structure, that's difficult to say, is so much more integrated. And you kind of have one organisation that has close links between primary care, between secondary care, and how that all meshes together is probably the reason why. But in essence, yeah, slightly higher level partnerships with NHS Wales versus other parts of the UK, which is something we're really proud of.
Thanks, Adam. Just one final reflection from me, just in terms of a question, I suppose, and this could probably equally apply to the three of you. Bear in mind Adam's point there about, I suppose, the healthcare system, the way it's structured in Wales. Of course, we have a very close proximity to government, and that's certainly a key feature of how the NHS is organised, how it's held to account, and how it's led in Wales. Obviously, we are heading into an election period that will come around pretty quickly in the new year, if it's not already upon us, with an election on the first Thursday in May. Where do we need to encourage people to articulate the importance of these partnership arrangements? Is it within the sector, or is it within the sector and also within government? Because government has a clear role to play in leading, informing, supporting delivery. Is government silent on the importance of partnerships with industry? Sian.
Yeah, I would say that if you really want to make a change in the NHS healthcare system, the government partnership is really, really critical and important. I've been in genomics over, well, nearly 35 years, and having a genomics strategy published in 2017 with a little bit of funding attached to that enables us to put that infrastructure in 2019, we were lucky enough to get a sequencer, a large sequencer at that point, that we were only the third NHS laboratory in the country that was able to buy that sequencer. Now, we would not have been able to do the quick DNA work without that sequencer. So not having a strategy, we wouldn't have had the sequencer. So from my perspective, having a government strategy and a clear strategy about what needs to be delivered within and the actions involved in that strategy was absolutely a key enabler to where we are and the programme of work that we've enabled to deliver in Wales.
Thanks, Sian. Chrissy Gallimore from Novartis has just put a question in the chat, and perhaps Nabil and perhaps Adam, this might be one for you. How do you think we can get better at scaling successful projects to an all Wales level versus individual health board levels? So going back to this issue of structure and size, and Wales, of course, being a small country, one would imagine this ought to be quite straightforward. So one of these eternal questions that we've been grappling with as a service for some time. So perhaps Adam, shall I come to you first on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things with it. I think first and foremost it should always be the ambition, and I think sometimes we don't start with the right ambition in mind. Sometimes we start with the ambition to potentially start smaller and then scale. But actually, if there's a really clear unmet need that's similar across the national footprint, we should start with that ambition in mind. I think certainly if I speak for ourselves, I think we've got much better at an organisation at building trusted relationships with people that have a national role. And I think to be able to start partnerships and projects, you have to have that right relationship with people that have got that role versus a health board role or versus a role potentially lower down in the system. So I think ambition and building the relationships at the right level are key to it. But then I think there is one other aspect as well, which is whilst that ambition may be in play, it's not always possible to start something at a national level. So if projects are started at a health board level or even below, building into the evaluation metrics and building into that contracting that a business case or whatever the next level down is from a business case to scale that to an all Wales level or the next level up right from the start is the second best sort of way around things. So I think there's a couple of different routes into it.
Thank you, Adam. Nabil, what's your take?
Thanks very much. I fully agree with what Adam says. My reflections on this at a slightly kind of more macro level even is there's a new kind of element within the life sciences sector plan, which is a kind of national UK-wide document which talks about the need to have one national scale partnership for the kind of period of the spending review. So essentially this Parliament period. So there's a real opportunity there where we can look at how we can deploy kind of national level partnerships across the entirety of the 4 nations of the UK, including Wales. I know that there's work already being done between the ABPI and our partners and friends at the Office for Life Sciences as well to understand how that can best be determined, including how we can make sure that this is operationalized and deployed at a devolved administration level as well. So kind of another perspective from a more macro level.
Thanks, Nabil. And Rachel Jenkins has just again popped a question in the chat, thanking you all for the examples, but asking what sort of learning could be shared that might speed up timelines to get partnerships underway. I suppose that there's always that risk in a system, however small Wales may be, that we can be somewhat bureaucratic on occasion, and things can often take a bit of time to get shifting in the right direction. So I suppose from the three of you, with coming at this from slightly different angles and different examples and perspectives, what sort of learning do you think colleagues could take away to help speed up those partnership timelines to get things up and running? Sian, I'll perhaps come back to you first on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think one of our big learning is funding, is getting the initial funding. I think both from Quick DNA and hopefully now with Max, is if you can get that initial funding, and especially if you can demonstrate that you've got Welsh Government support, as well as industry, that once you've started the ball rolling, then it's easier to get further funding partners coming in. But getting that initial funding, going back to 2019, we spoke to one pharma company and we spent a whole year trying to get funding, and it seemed very positive, and we didn't, in the end, we weren't successful with that particular conversation. So never to give up, ever, but to get that initial funding stream in, I think that's the most difficult part of getting a program up and running. I think that's my I think that's my big sharing comment.
Thank you, Sian. Adam, I'll come to you next. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if this will be a popular one or not, but it's about everybody holding each other to account is my biggest piece of advice. I think we've made some decent progress, but we're nowhere near where we want to be in terms of the timelines of getting things from concept to live around proper partnership projects. We've still got a long way to go. I think one of the biggest learns that we've had is when we're held to account by our NHS partners, things tend to go a little bit quicker. But actually, we shouldn't be shy as an industry if it's a genuine partnership with genuine shared goals and genuine shared belief that we can get to an outcome, of having some difficult conversations as an industry with our NHS partners to hold the NHS to account on timelines and information and insight that's needed to get things going. So holding to account for me is a really important part.
Thank you, Adam. Nabil, thanks.
Yeah, fully agree with that. And I think the kind of trust and the accountability elements are really important. And I think at the start of any kind of process, when we've seen kind of successful collaborations that have taken place at pace and at speed, you often have those kind of more difficult conversations early on. Hopefully this guidance document helps out a little bit with that. We've got kind of project concept forms and framework papers which are included here, which really help when kind of both initial conversations are having to better understand what the kind of proposed purpose of the project is, the kind of budgetary expectations, and then clearly outlining the kind of length of the project itself, and then kind of who the decision makers are. And then just to very briefly add to that, in terms of the kind of governance framework, having the kind of clear, and this builds on what Adam was saying earlier, having those kind of clear lines of responsibility around who should be involved in terms of the project team and the steering committee is really important, just to make sure that you build that trust, build that kind of relationship, so that those partnerships can be kind of delivered at pace as well.
Thanks, Nabil. And Chris Martin, chair of the Life Sciences Hub, has just popped a question in the chat, which is for us in the NHS Confed, as to whether we have a compelling offer for the pharma industry working in Wales, and guidance is, of course, helpful. But we do need our own manifesto of why Wales. We are small enough, but big enough, etc. I think that's a really valuable point. I think you're publishing guidance as to how partnership working can be effective and the things that ought to be done in Wales is really important. But actually selling Wales as a place to engage and to do business, I think is vital. One of the things I would say to that, Chris, is that as a Welsh NHS Confederation, of course, we are intrinsically part of the overall NHS Confed, working very closely with our colleagues in London. That obviously brings us a great degree of capacity, of additional skills, and of course exposure to a market outside of Wales. So I think for us that is something that we can take away and work through as to how the Confed, working with ABPI and others, can start to promote Wales as a destination for organisations who will hopefully be looking to do business here. And thank you for the offer to work with colleagues to promote that. Perhaps we should sit down and have a conversation as to what that needs to look like. A quick one for Adam, actually, from Mark again. Adam, even if strategic objectives are all aligned and your ducks are in a row, implementation of collaborative programs can stall with varied geographical resources and inequality of resource, thinking about access to tests, MRI, ECHO, etc., and skills bases to implement significantly. Was this a factor that needed mitigation?
I think there are some projects that we have done, and I'm trying to think if one of these was in NHS Wales. I don't think it was, where we learnt the hard way where particularly skills and resources weren't in place at the beginning of a project, where actually we realized we needed to build them through the project, which had a massive knock-on delay on implementation. And it was a project that was focused on guideline implementation. And it actually meant that the patient touch points, which were a significant part of the project, were all significantly delayed and caused quite a lot of stress. So I think we've learned the hard way where certain mandatory resources haven't been in play at the beginning of collaborative projects that have had a major knock-on impact on them. Through our governance processes as an organisation, as we now go into projects, asking the right questions of the people within our organisation to make sure that we're having the right dialogue with NHS partners to ensure that some of those kind of like mandatory resources or mandatory skills are in play, aligned to the project, is something that we're much more conscious of now when setting out on collaborative programs.
Adam, thank you very much indeed. Just checking around the virtual room to see if there are any other questions before we draw our session to a close. No, I can't see anything else. Can I thank you all very much for raising those questions? Oh, sorry, Rachel, apologies. There's always one that gets right in at the end. It's a quick fire round and a quiz, really, isn't it, Rachel? Rachel, good to see you this morning. Quick one for me. Speaking from experience, legal and IG approval can take a while, especially in a health board who haven't done joint projects before. It'd be hard to align legal clauses. Any tips? I suppose the question here for us is that where this has happened elsewhere in health boards who have already gone through the due diligence, the various things that need to be ticked off, is the extent to which that can all be shared, I suppose, to help smooth things along. But any further tips on how we can sort of square that particular circle? Or any Sian? Yeah, thanks.
No, absolutely. I think that the legal and the IG going through the different contracts, especially if you've got multi-pharma industry partners, is absolutely critical. We've been really lucky with our sponsors that we've had. We currently got Cardiff and Vale and Gero sponsoring the Quick DNA Max programme, but just having that support around the IG approval and the contracting, just the contracting alone, is a major piece of work, Jonathan. So absolutely agree with that you need somebody within your health board who can take and support you on that responsibility, because it is a mammoth task to go through those contracting and keeping all the different partners on track with the project.
Thanks, Sian. Any final reflections on that, Adam or Nabil?
Just from an industry point of view, I think some of the requirements and some of the clauses for NHS organisations in Wales are slightly different to other parts of the UK. So just from advice to other parts of the industry, just be really conscious of that, and keep a really strong record of what those requirements look like, so they can be plugged straight into the agreements and the contracts next time a project with NHS an NHS Wales organisation comes around. We now have a slightly different template for contracting with Welsh organisations to we do across the rest of the UK because of that. So bit of a systems and processes piece, I think.
Thanks, Adam. Nabil.
Thanks very much. I think I just reiterate what Adam said around just making sure to kind of be cognizant of previous partnerships where they've taken place and drawing on some of those learnings, particularly from that kind of more complex legal aspects as well.
Thank you very much. And Chris has just said that there's work ongoing to ensure the IG is done once for Wales through the Tackling Cancer Network, for example. So clearly opportunity to address that. Can I thank you all for attending this morning? Huge thanks to Sian, to Nabil and to Adam for leading this webinar. My thanks to our colleagues at the Welsh NHS Confederation and to ABPI for all of their support in pulling this together, and to thank all of you for attending. And finally, for me, can I wish you, in advance of next week,